All right. Good morning. Good morning, GM. Folks, it is another beautiful day to have a beautiful day. Welcome to another episode of Fomo Hour today. Fomo Hour episode 168. Today is Tuesday, July 30th, 2024. It is a hot Sunday morning here in Chicago today, folks. Crypto was feeling hot yesterday morning into our show. And then things went south a bit and not quite as hot here today. ETH, though, maybe feeling kind of hot, at least compared to the rest. I'm sure we'll get into that here in a bit. Folks, no Farouk today. He is traveling back from a funeral, but we've got Mando on deck to help us cope with these spooked markets. It seems like the U.S. has spooked everyone. Mando, Jim, how are you doing?
Doing great, man. Doing great. Another day in London. It's actually been surprisingly nice weather since I've been back for once.
Nice. Do you still have another few days, weeks left in your trip over there?
I'm here until Sunday, and then I'm going straight back to Portugal for a long time. I think I'm done traveling for a while.
Yeah, I can understand that. Well, enjoy your last week over there. Things feel a little slower here to kick off the week. It does feel like the time to kind of enjoy the last few weeks of summer, but still a good amount to cover. So we'll break it all down on today's show. We're going to start with the market report. We're going to talk the U.S. government spooking the market by moving some Bitcoin. SOL flipping ETH majorly in some key metrics. The SEC dropping some securities allegations here in the last day. BlackRock's CIO making some bullish, some bearish comments in an interview yesterday. Crypto continuing to get more and more political. A new Nero winner. It seems like the Nero meme coin winner has now been cemented. Perhaps a surprising outcome. We've got this FWOG token going nuclear. In NFT news, Doodles are pumping in big Red Guy news. Some a big new partnership. So perhaps we'll chat about that. I think without any further ado, why don't we get into the Mando market report?
Who is the man, macro daddy of the land? Can you dig it?
Man, we're just going to go back and forth on market reports, aren't we? It's like we're covering 90% of the market here, just being new. It feels as though the main thing that happened over the last 24 hours was just this movement of Bitcoin, which kind of spooked the market. About $2 billion worth. It's related to the Silk Road claims or seizures, let's say. And I think this was maybe pre-announced. We saw some news around this, that Coinbase is going to potentially custody this. So there's been some expectation that this isn't going to be sold, that this is just a different custodian. That being said, it took the whole market lower. We saw Bitcoin head down to about 60K and hasn't really bounced, to be honest. We've just cleared out a bunch of open interest. Solana head below 180, which I think was an interesting move. And then you saw ETH slightly outperform. I think the main things that have happened over the last 24 hours there has been the Grayscale outflows seemingly look like they've slowed down slightly. I think it was a figure below 200 million of outflows yesterday, which led to a bounce. For Salana, you did have some headlines of the SEC in their Binance lawsuit were probably going to drop some of the securities claims, of which Solana was one of a few different securities there. So people were getting relatively bullish around that. But we've basically seen a reversal. If you bring up the SOL ETH chart, I think that it hit like a trip that was right on all-time high, and it just bounced from that all-time high. I don't know if you can do it on there. Maybe you have to do it on like Deck Screen or something, SOL ETH, or on trade, or maybe you have to do it on TradingView actually. But it's like if you bring up this chart and you look back over the last, go to full chart. If you go up slightly. Oh yeah, see, this is good enough. You see, like it just basically bounced off that ceiling level that is hit a few times, and has dipped from that level. So ETH looks like a little bit better over the last 24 hours. Obviously, there's some expectation that Grayscale might be close to being done already. They've already gotten rid of like 25% of their holdings, so it's been a big move lower. So yeah, people are getting. You see, it was around 210 million, which is down from 400 to 500 million, and then 300 million most of last week. So that people took positively. ETH bounced, I think, as soon as that figure came out, and you've kind of just had a bit of a reversal in the SOL ETH chart, which has been kind of at multi-week highs and close to all-time highs there. So that's been the main macro news. I'm kind of surprised. I kind of felt like it was a decent flush yesterday when we hit 70K, and I thought we would kind of bounce pretty aggressively just given how positive the weekend was. But maybe we don't know. Maybe this Bitcoin does get sold. Who knows? Like, it still feels like it's people guessing that's what it's around. So maybe some people are in the know there. Solana being below 180, I think people obviously got super pulled up when it was at 195, where it is. It's probably a good that it cleaned out some of these aggressive longs. I think the CME open interest, or actually global open interest on Bitcoin, was the highest level ever yesterday. So when you have a setup like that, it kind of feels like we probably need a flush before we even attempt to go to all-time highs. We have a big week.
Yeah, sorry, I mean, just to jump in real quick, what was throwing me off, so I understand like the U.S. government move, spooked some folks, even though it's unclear if they're actually going to sell it. But then there was also inflows yesterday. So like IBIT had 200 million. So I guess maybe it's the debt, the delta neutral trade in action. But like that's what really surprised me when I saw like the net 125 million in inflow into the ETFs, and we still fell 5%.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the biggest inflow ever. I feel as though short-term moves in Bitcoin don't really pay attention to daily inflows too much. It's more like over medium term. I think we are set up to go close to that 71 to 72K area. I think we probably needed this to flush us out a little bit. People to be a little bit scared again. You don't just hit all time. I think you need a little bit of pain right beforehand. So I think this is a good setup. It'll probably happen suddenly when people aren't expecting it. It has been a big week, or is going to be a big week for macro this week. We have 3 different major central banks deciding on policy, BOJ, Bank of England, and then the Fed. And then you have non-farm payrolls. You have a bunch of tech earnings. You had Eurozone GDP today. Like, definitely a big week for macro, of which I'm sure people will make huge claims that we're going to absolutely tank or we're going to absolutely rip on the back of them. I think just expect some volatility this week on the back of how many different headlines we're probably going to get.
Yeah, it's going to be a roller coaster. We got FOMC plus July rate cut decisions plus whatever Powell's going to say tomorrow, and Coinbase earnings too on Thursday after close. Yeah, so that's going to be an interesting one to see how they're doing. I think one of the interesting headlines for me. So BlackRock, let me try to see if I can pull this up. They had, the CIO was giving this interview to Bloomberg, and they mentioned a couple different things. So one, they said they are expecting to see allocation of crypto ETFs into model portfolios, using their words, by the end of this year, which I thought was a bullish signal that yes, the bankers are really going to start selling this. But then on the other side, they said no, but it's not going to be Solana. So they said basically they don't see a Solana ETF coming in this year or even that closely. So I thought that was an interesting interview.
I think they've said this before though. I think if some of the other ETF providers have said this, you remember, you have to put this into context. Solana is 3% of the market, 3.6% of the market. If they just got the ETH ETFs over the line, and we're already seeing kind of mixed responses on the back of that, then FOMO into a 3% asset seems maybe a bit much. I think they'll probably wait and see how ETH goes. No one's like desperate to bring out a Solana ETF. I think maybe one of more of the fringe people. It's probably why they didn't follow. Who was it? Van Eck or 21 Shares that did the Solana ETF?
I think Van Eck maybe broke it. Yeah.
Like, they aren't BlackRock, and they maybe because BlackRock just didn't see the point. It's like we don't need to go after 3% of this market right now. We're just focusing on ETH and Bitcoin. So I think part of it's that, like, the incentives just aren't there. I don't know if it's, and obviously the regulatory clarity isn't there either. I think it's maybe slightly improving, but it's definitely not there for Solana yet. Like, it's not like, oh, this is definitely a commodity. The SEC has definitely not come out and said anything like that. So I think, we're maybe just not there yet. I do think a Solana ETF probably happens with a new, like, if Trump gets in potentially. I maybe if the Democrats really change their tune. Though interestingly, there was some talk about the fact that one of the current VP picks is pretty anti-crypto, potentially. So I don't know. I don't really know what the policy of the Democrats will be going forward. It does feel like Kamala wants to court them a little bit more, but will it be enough to get a Solana ETF and kind of widespread crypto regulation? Maybe a bit too far.
Yeah, I saw that there were some Dems who really want Kamala to go to a crypto conference, and they're actually looking at the upcoming Blockworks one as one to speak. So that'll be interesting. Of course, like, if the U.S. sells any of this Bitcoin, I think it's going to be hard to that's going to be a blow to the Democrat crypto cause. I think that much is just pretty obvious at this point. I think we saw the backlash on the timeline yesterday, just from them moving it, and just how hyper partisan and political that this is all become. Without diving into that, I don't think we need to. Another piece of news from yesterday that jumped out to me was the Solana fee action. So Bread Guy reported on this. Let me see if I can pull up his tweet here. 1 second. But basically, he's calling it the Triple Crown. That Solana locked in the Triple Crown for 24-hour fees, flipped ETH. So they won it on the chain level, they won it on the DEX level, and then also like at the staking level. So Solana flipped ETH in fees. We saw Jito flip Lido, and then Radium flipped Uniswap. And then this also came on the same day that Pumped Up Fund led all protocols in revenue. They brought in 860,000 on the day. I was taking a look at their numbers, and if you look at the chart on DeFi Llama, at least, I mean, they're basically averaging $1 million in revenue per day. They're annualized at 315 million in revenue on a yearly basis right now, which makes them. I mean, they're a $1 billion protocol at this point, right? Like, just putting any type of valuation math multiple on top of that. So are they the clear winner? Any reaction to? I mean, we talked about this, and you've said, Mando, that Solana does seem undervalued compared to ETH at 20% the market cap. But it just keeps getting slammed in front of us, in our face on a daily basis right now.
Yeah, I think the main arguments against that were that the total economic value, including all the L2s of Solana or of ETH, were still comfortably above Solana, and that you were starting to, and obviously the TVL is much higher. What you started to see actually is Solana flip ETH on the L1 and combined with all the L2s. And I think that's something to really start paying attention to. Now, I think the main thing to note here, like, objectively, is that for me, Solana, the tokenomics and inflation are always a factor. It's less like gold than Bitcoin for sure, and less like gold than ETH. Like, the ETH is inflationary at around 1 to 2% at the moment. Solana's inflationary, I think, closer to 6 to 7%. Now, that's going to come down with time, but there is still quite a lot of inflation at Solana, so it's something to be aware of. And also, we obviously just went through FTX selling all these claims to VCs. There will be some supply that comes on the back of that too. Like, the fully diluted market cap of Solana is about 20 to 25% higher than its current market cap, and with ETH, it's all fully diluted at this stage, even though the Ethereum Foundation regularly dumps. But it's those are the two things I think to be aware of. I think Solana dominance, which is at 3.6%, I think it can go to 5 to 6%. I'm not saying it can go to 10 or flip ETH this cycle, but I think pretty comfortably it could go higher. I don't know what ETH dominance is right now, probably probably around 16%. But could I see a world where Solana goes up to 6, let's say, 5 to 6, and ETH comes down to 12 to 13 to 13 to 14, something like that? Yeah, I think that's pretty comfortable. And that doesn't mean I'm like overly bearish. I'm talking about dominance here. I just think that the fastest horse right now is in Solana. I still think ETH can go higher. I think it has a good narrative around the ETF and also some of the institutional adoption. But yeah, my view is just that it's a very strong horse this cycle, but it's not. I don't think it's ready to flip ETH. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think that's a fair take. It may need to get to 5% dominance to really get the ETF approval pushed through, or to get enough demand for some of these players to want to launch it. And I mean, I think we're seeing it. Like, there's demand for the ETH ETF. It's not like huge by any means. So I think they're going to want to see that play out a little bit as well before we really just start rallying around this SOL ETF narrative. Though perhaps a little bit more likely, the SEC news from yesterday, not huge, that they're not dropping their case. They're not dropping the fact that SOL and ADA and Matic are securities, but they're effectively tabling it. They're saying it does not need to be ruled on as a part of their case against Binance right now. So a little bit of a kicking the can down the road. So not a full celebration, still some positive news. I think that the other stories, I think maybe if we want to get into memes and NFTs a little bit here, Mando, if that works for you.
For sure. Let's do it.
We found that the winner in the great Nero race, and it looks to have been a surprise horse. Like, I would not have had this on my bingo card, but it looks like it was the ETH dog, pun intended, who's going to be winning the Nero race. It is now, I'm trying to get the chart shared for those in the YouTube. It's at 66 million market cap. It's up 360% on the day. Like, arguably one of the best looking meme charts out there. A tough personal story. I had a buddy share this one specifically with me at 5 million on Sunday. And I was just like, no, this Nero situation is way too messy. I'm just gonna stay away. And I got beaten up a little bit last week chasing some stuff, and it's up 13x from there. And then if you take a look at the Solana leaders, certainly the Solana ones are still catching a ton of action, but the numbers look much worse. So we've got one of them which they still saw over 100 million between the top two dogs, the top two Nero coins yesterday. So one's at 45 million. One's at 6 million, both down about 30 and 50%. So it seems like those two are going the wrong way, perhaps cannibalizing themselves a little bit, while the ETH one is looking to run. I was chatting with Tabs a little bit ahead of the show, and we were wondering, is it because like the ETH meme landscape is just like, it feels so wide open right now. Like, you've got Pepe, Mog, and after that, like, it's so light. Like, there's Turbo up there, but you don't really hear a lot about that. Pepe coin is kind of its own thing. Trump, even despite all the pro crypto stuff, that token is down only. It's at 230. You've got a mix of AI coins. We might have to start chatting about this AI basket, which is starting to catch a little bit of life. But broadly, there's just nothing else jumping out.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. Me and Ovi were talking about it even last week. Just that there are just ETH holders. There also often these have much lower holders per coin. And they're often like later stage. So like Morg and Pepe just feel like far more developed in terms of culture. And there's less temptation, I think, each day to just move into another coin. I think that's a really, really important thing. There's something to be said about Solana, is that to even be high priced on Sol, like if you're a holder there of a Solana meme coin who's got, let's say a crazy bag, let's say like over $1 million of any of these coins, it is so tempting on a daily basis when you're sitting there in front of a casino screen, essentially, not to just be like, hey, I'm going to go buy the new casino coin. Like, it is so unbelievably tempting. And I think that it's very, very tough to. I mean, I even know it with Epic. Like, it's really tough to maintain attention in this space. You kind of rest on the idea of building a cult over a medium to long time. And I think that's something that hopefully I think we managed to develop at Epic, but is also, as a coin goes towards 100 million, there's just another coin each week that you feel like you should rotate into. Even more so than like NFTs in their heyday, like the ease that you can just get out of your huge bag and move into something else, it's just a continual casino. Now, that guy Murad has been coming out and saying, own cults for a longer period, have a longer term horizon. I think there's been a bit of a push towards that. But then, I still think there's a massive community of people that are just here every single day trying to move to the new coin. So yeah, we had all the different Nero coins. It doesn't surprise me that ETH maybe sees a better one. I think no one really wins in that Nero game. My honest opinion is that they probably all don't do as well. But there's something to be said there independently that Solana memes are incredibly tough to keep going. You've got, I think you do have to bet on cults over a medium term a bit more here, but it still have hairy moves. I think it's one of these.
I would agree. I think it's just hard to define like cults and still pick the right ones. And like, can you form a cult on a weekly basis? And are there enough separate cohorts in the Solana trenches to actually form like 15 different cults? Because it feels like we're getting to the levels. Like, I mean, Murad alone has got like 7 or something cults on his list. And then if you add any more to that, so now we're talking about 15 different cults. It doesn't necessarily feel like we've got that many different groups.
Well, I think this SCF thing is kind of like tried to speed run it with this kind of religious concept around it, right? Like we've got actually got a church going. But I think there's something to be said about, Giga didn't move until Giga was formed in January. I think like Ponky similar was old. Like coins which are older potentially and not just like this week's coin, but are still lower priced, I think are the ones that he kind of moved into. If you go down his list, a lot of them were kind of 5 months old rather than like this month.
Yeah.
So the idea that you're forming a cult, I agree, in a week, I think is quite tough. How many coins really run to 100 million these days? Something to note. Like it,
right?
You sometimes see it, but generally when they go above 100 million and they're new, that doesn't really happen. The ones that go above 100 million have generally been older memes that have suddenly caught a bid. So even on this SCF thing, which I think has been a bit more unique than others, like this should be one of the few that's kind of speed run to 100 and like kept there. Normally, it takes a long time. Yeah,
I mapped out all the memes over 100 million on Salana just like a week and a half ago. I think there's like 12 to 15. So like it's a big deal to get to that threshold. It's not easy to do it.
Yeah.
SCF has basically gotten there. I mean, it looks like they basically wicked above it already here in their first 10 days. I think the concern is like, did it happen too fast? And then all the folks who are looking at their screen now have massive gains, and clearly they do, because you could have been buying this at 100x lower just a week ago. So I don't know. It makes these fast runners harder to enter, at least for me. I think my other like somewhat concern is like every time we see a new token like this run, it feels more and more like it's dampening the other tokens. So like if we looked back at the next board, like everything else is red, like just about everything. So like we're in the Nero aftermath, where Nero sucked a ton of liquidity and all the previous leaders all fell 10 to 15%. Now they're all down 5 to 10% more. And it's just like, it makes me wonder, like, are we on like the part of the cycle where the roller coaster loops are smaller and smaller all the way down? I don't want to believe that, but some of this action is kind of pointing that way.
I think it's a really good point. And I think it's something to be aware of. Like Pump.Fun making $1 million of revenue, that's like OpenSea making $1 million of revenue. You know, there'll be questions afterwards being like, wow, God, that sucks so much liquidity out of the system. You know, $1 million of revenue a day. I don't think they're pumping it back into meme coins. And I think the other thing is with someone like Nero, when you see these huge volume memes that actually don't really do that much, or like they don't maintain a high value, what you've really seen there is like a bunch of people lose money to MEV bots.
Yeah.
So I think actually over the last few days, we've seen a massive destruction of like value across MEV bots and also pumped up fund, obviously, just like continually making its money. But Nero, I think, has been really, really bad for the Solana meme coin space, probably in general, because there's a lot of net losses there. A lot of these volume figures are massively inflated at the moment because of, there's so much MEV to be made.
Yeah, it's the MEV winners, it's dev winners, the folks launching these coins and selling early, pump fund, and it's a lot. Right. So now you need the leaders to really level up to create the wealth effect to support this again. And we'll see if that can happen.
Well, yeah, I think obviously, Bitcoin's still doing okay. And, in terms of the global crypto market cap, we're still doing okay. And I still think that people find money to spend at casinos. There's like hundreds of billions, if not over $1 trillion being spent at casinos each year. I still think that people come in here to gamble. So I'm not necessarily like super bearish on that money, like completely leaving. I think there will always be new funds that come in and play. These people, like you felt on the weekend when the whole Nero thing broke, the people paying attention to this are not really even paying attention to Bitcoin. They're just coming in here to like spend some money and roll the dice at the casino. So I think there will always be new funds that come in to actually play with these tools. Oh, I think you may be frozen, dude. Just me. I don't really know what to do with tabs.
Don't worry, we can keep going. Let's keep going.
He's talking. I can hear him on my phone. So he's just going on the space by himself. And I think I'm by myself on the YouTube. So we're existing in two universes at the moment.
Oh yeah.
Sorry about that, guys. I kept the space going, so hopefully folks in the space were able to hear me rambling about the FLOG token up 23x. Mando, sorry I missed your last comments there.
No, don't worry.
Yeah. I think we kind of went through the meme conversation. I briefly touched on FLOG on the space. It was just the other wild runner on the day. I think what was lastly of note to me was just a couple of NFT topics before we round things out. So we had Julian Hogan on the show yesterday. It is hard to listen to him and not get fired up about what Doodles are building, and we saw some nice action in the market yesterday. So those Doodles NFTs up 15%, one of the top movers. But hey, another top mover on the day, close to home. Those rec guys up 30% on the day after we saw a strategic partnership with HLV, known for their assistance with teams in launching fungible tokens. So there's probably not a whole lot we can say, but some big news yesterday. I'm not sure if there's any other context or info.
No, not really. I think it's we obviously did the equity gift to everyone, so we set ourselves up correctly there, and obviously it's Rect brand, so there's going to be a few different products starting with a drink that we're going to launch, and we'll see which other things can we use to help bond that interaction.
Exciting times, and it's going to make tomorrow's Rollbit spins a bit more exciting as well. The stakes are going to be raised.
Yeah, they're suddenly higher now.
So we're going to be looking forward to that, folks. We've got 2 of the next 3 shows are going to be featuring roll but spin. So we'll have those on tomorrow. We'll have those on Friday as well. Those are most of my topics. Just quickly in the prediction market streets, I think the thing to watch, Nate Silver, now the advisor for Polymarket, he is releasing his first post-Kamala candidate election model later today. So I do think that when he releases that model, it will likely impact the primary election market. So that's going to be one to watch here later today. So check that out. I just actually subscribed to his Substack in the past week. I think you might get early access to those. So
I think they've integrated it with Substack now. I saw that today.
Yeah, that's big news. So you can drop the actual bets directly into the newsletter. So curious if he'll be doing that. Of note, the Polymarket primary election market is off. Off is the wrong word. It is trading differently than the other markets. So it was still at like Trump 60% to Kamala 38% this morning. The predicted market's at like 54.50. I think another one is closer. I think Kamala's up over 40. So it's going to be interesting to see if that one does shift after this model. So perhaps we'll be chatting about that on tomorrow's show. But I think we went around the horn, covered most of the items on my list. Was there anything else on your side here for this morning?
No, I think we're in a good spot, dude.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, folks who joined the shows and the streams. Thank you for joining us. Have a fantastic Tuesday. We will see you all tomorrow. Tabs, take it away.